What happens when Hollywood's golden glamour meets a chilling secret? Follow rising pop star Lena Cross as she moves into the historic mansion of a forgotten Golden Age actress, only to discover a haunting legacy trapped in an old mirror. Strange jazz music, ghostly reflections, and a sinister presence known only as the man in the mirror threaten to unravel her mind and career. Dive into this thriller-style ghost story inspired by true Hollywood legends, where every reflection hides a darker truth. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you love mysterious tales that blend celebrity glam with supernatural suspense. Let's begin. The Hollywood Hills Haunting. Act 1. The Glamorous Arrival. Lena Cross had been to a lot of houses, but none of them looked like this. The driveway curved up into the clouds, flanked by cypress trees so tall they seemed to watch her. The house sat like a queen at the top of the hill, a 1920 Spanish Revival mansion with cream-colored stucco, red tile roof, and windows that glinted in the sun like camera flashes. Her driver stopped, and the engine's hum faded into an eerie quiet. The air smelled faintly of orange blossoms, though she couldn't see a single tree. "This is it, Miss Cross," her manager Blake said, stepping out of the car. "Vivienne Vale's old place. Pure Hollywood history." Lena had heard of Vivienne Vale. Every singer who moved to Los Angeles had. She'd been one of the brightest stars of the Golden Age, famous for her sultry voice and eyes that made men forget their wives. And then, at the height of her career, she'd been found dead in her dressing room. Official cause: suicide. Unofficial theory: Hollywood had eaten her alive. Inside, the place was immaculate, too immaculate. The living room felt staged, like a movie set waiting for actors. Velvet drapes in rich wine red. Crystal chandeliers that shimmered when she moved. In the far corner, a grand piano sat polished to a mirror shine. The caretaker, a lean woman named Mrs. Calder, gave Lena a tour. "This house has its own personality," she said in a voice that suggested both affection and warning. "Don't open the attic. And never move the mirror in the west bedroom." "What mirror?" Lena asked. Mrs. Calder didn't answer. That night, Lena unpacked in the west bedroom, which of course had a mirror. It stood tall, framed in gold leaf, draped with a cream silk cloth. The kind of mirror you'd expect to see in an old MGM dressing room. She didn't touch it. But around midnight, she woke to faint music drifting through the house. It wasn't the thumping bass of LA nightlife, but slow, smoky jazz, the kind you hear in black and white movies. She slipped out of bed, following the sound down the hall. The music stopped the moment she reached the living room. She stood in silence, her heart ticking in her chest, when something brushed past her. A breeze, soft but deliberate, carrying a whiff of perfume. A rich, powdery scent. It was gone as quickly as it came. Lena turned to go back to bed, but froze. In the reflection of the grand piano's glossy lid, she thought she saw someone. A woman in a silk gown, standing in the doorway watching her. When she spun around, the doorway was empty. Act 2. The Echoes of the Past. The next morning, Lena chalked up the night's events to jet lag and too much imagination. She made coffee in the sprawling kitchen, all marble counters and vintage fixtures, and tried to focus on her reason for being here, to write her next album. But the air felt heavier. In daylight, the west bedroom seemed normal enough. The draped mirror sat in the corner like an obedient dog, ignored and unmoving. Still, every time Lena passed it, she felt the tiniest pull, as if curiosity was its own gravity. On the third night, she dreamt in black and white. She was in a powder room with gilded sconces and silk wallpaper. In the mirror, uncovered, stood a woman who looked just like Vivienne Vale. But in the dream, Lena was the one wearing Vivienne's gown, Vivienne's diamonds, Vivienne's smirk. Jazz music played from somewhere far away, and the air smelled of champagne. A man's voice whispered behind her, "You look perfect, darling. Don't move." Lena turned in the dream, but her body didn't move, only the reflection did. The man in the mirror was tall, with slicked back hair and a tuxedo. His face was handsome but wrong, like an old photograph left too long in the sun. She woke with a start. That morning she asked Mrs. Calder about Vivienne Vale. The caretaker was wiping down the grand piano, but paused mid-polish. "Vivienne was a star before you were born," she said. "And stars burn hot, but they don't last. Her career ended quickly and she died soon after. People talk, but talk is just noise. What matters is she's at rest now." Lena frowned. "If she's at rest, why keep the mirror covered?" Mrs. Calder's eyes flicked up sharply. "Because it's better that way." Later that day, Lena took a break from songwriting and wandered the halls. The place had more rooms than she'd remembered from the tour. Some locked, others half empty, like the house had been shrinking over the decades. In a small library she found a stack of old photoplay magazines. One cover caught her eye. Vivienne Vale, smiling wide, wearing the same silk gown from Lena's dream. The caption read, "Hollywood sweetheart turns 25, the star who has it all." That night the jazz music returned. Louder this time. Lena followed it to the west bedroom. The sound seemed to come from behind the draped mirror. Her hand hovered over the silk cloth. She hesitated, but before she could touch it, a shadow passed across the mirror's surface, even though it was covered. And in the dim light, she thought she saw movement beneath the fabric, as if someone inside was leaning closer to the glass. Act 3, The Man in the Mirror. Lena didn't sleep after that. She stayed up in the living room, scrolling through her phone, trying to drown out the memory of the moving shadow. By morning she had made a decision. She was going to look behind that silk cloth. But first she wanted answers. She called a friend of hers, Nolan Vega, a music producer who knew all the Hollywood gossip. When she told him where she was staying, he went quiet for a beat too long. "Lena, that's Vivienne Vale's place," he said finally. "And the mirror? Oh man, I've heard stories." "What kind of stories?" "That she died in front of it. They say she was talking to someone no one else could see. They found her on the floor, staring at her own reflection, face frozen in terror." Lena tried to laugh it off, but her throat was tight. "So, urban legend? Maybe. But if I were you, I wouldn't be sleeping in that room." That night, she poured herself a glass of wine and went to the west bedroom. The air felt charged, like the pause before a lightning strike. She stood in front of the mirror, reached up and pulled the silk cloth away. The gold frame gleamed under the lamplight. The glass was flawless but deep. Too deep. Her reflection seemed darker than the rest of the room, as if the mirror was a window into some place where the light didn't quite reach. She leaned closer. For a moment her reflection didn't move. Then, behind her, in the reflection, the man appeared. Tall. Black tuxedo. Slick back hair. His smile was sharp but not friendly. Lena spun around. Nothing. The room was empty. When she looked back, he was still there in the mirror, standing closer than before. Her breath hitched. "Who are you?" she whispered. His lips moved but no sound came. Still, Lena thought she knew what he'd said. "You know me?" The lamp beside her flickered. She dropped the cloth back over the mirror and ran from the room, heart pounding. Downstairs, Mrs. Calder was waiting in the hallway as if she'd known. "You uncovered it, didn't you?" The caretaker's voice was low. Lena swallowed hard. "Who is he?" Mrs. Calder's eyes darkened. "Some say he was a studio man. Others say he was something worse, not a man at all. Vivienne called him the man in the mirror. And once you've seen him, he doesn't stop coming closer." Act 4, The Hollywood Secret. The next morning, Lena drove down into the city. She needed to get away from the house, from its long shadows and silent halls, even just for a few hours. She ended up at the Margaret Herrick Library, the Film Academy's archive. She told the receptionist she was researching Vivienne Vale for a project. Within minutes, she was seated in front of a stack of brittle newspaper clippings and studio press releases. Vivienne had been everything they'd said: beautiful, charming, unstoppable. She'd signed with Argent Pictures in 1947 and starred in 6 hit films in just 4 years. And then, the articles changed. Rumors of erratic behavior on set. Whispers about a romance gone sour with one of Argent's most powerful executives, Charles M. Rathmore. One column hinted at private photographs being used as leverage against her. The last piece Lena found was dated July 12, 1951. Actress Vivienne Vale found dead in her home. Authorities ruled it a suicide by overdose. She was discovered in her bedroom before midnight. Unconfirmed reports suggest she was speaking to an unidentified man moments before her death. Lena stared at the words, her skin prickling. Charles Rathmore's name kept echoing in her mind. She pulled his file but found it slim, just a few photos and a single obituary. He had vanished from public life in 1952, 1 year after Vivienne's death. Cause of death, undisclosed. Back at the mansion that evening, Lena found Mrs. Calder in the kitchen, chopping herbs with mechanical precision. "Tell me about Charles Rathmore," Lena said. The caretaker's knife paused mid-slice. "You've been digging. I want the truth." Mrs. Calder set the knife down slowly. Charles Rathmore was dangerous. Not just in the way powerful men are dangerous. He had a way of making people do what he wanted. And once you belonged to him, you didn't get away. Vivienne tried. "What does that have to do with the mirror?" "Everything. The mirror was his. He gave it to Vivienne and she hated it. Said she saw him in it even when he wasn't there. She said it was a door, but only for him." Lena's mouth went dry. "You think he killed her?" Mrs. Calder's gaze drifted toward the ceiling, as if she could see the west bedroom through the floor. "I think he never left." That night, the jazz music returned, louder than before, filling the house like it was coming from hidden speakers. Lena stayed in her room, clutching her phone, when she saw movement in the shadows by the door. A figure in a tuxedo. And this time she didn't have to look in the mirror to see him. Act 5. The final performance. Lena's breath caught. The figure in the tuxedo didn't move, just stood in the doorway like a shadow cut out of the air. His features were faint, blurred like the image of a man in an old reel of film. "Get out," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. The figure smiled, that same sharp, knowing smile she'd seen in the mirror, and stepped forward. The room darkened with each of his steps. The walls seemed to stretch taller, the corners sinking into pitch black. The jazz music swelled, so loud Lena's teeth ached with each trumpet blast. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the music stopped. The man was gone. Lena's phone buzzed in her hand. An unknown number. When she answered, the line hissed with static, and then a woman's voice, low and urgent. "He's almost through. If he reaches you, it's over. Break the mirror." The voice was gone before Lena could respond. She didn't sleep. Instead, she waited for the first pale light of dawn, then marched upstairs to the west bedroom. The silk cloth lay crumpled on the floor. She didn't remember leaving it that way. The mirror was uncovered, waiting. Vivienne Vale stood inside it. She looked just as she had in the old photoplay cover, beautiful, poised, except her eyes were desperate, darting toward something behind her. And then Lena saw him. Charles Rathmore stepping into the frame, his hand reaching for Vivienne's shoulder. "Help me," Vivienne mouthed. Lena grabbed the nearest thing, a brass lamp, and swung it at the mirror. The glass didn't shatter. It rippled. Rathmore's hand pushed through, pale and cold, brushing Lena's arm. She stumbled back, heart hammering, as the mirror's surface stilled again. Vivienne was gone. Only Rathmore remained, standing in the center of the reflection, closer than ever. The air thickened, heavy as syrup. The chandelier above groaned, its crystals trembling. The jazz music returned, not from the hall this time, but from inside Lena's skull. She lunged for the mirror again, this time grabbing the gold frame and tipping it forward. It fell face first onto the hardwood with a deafening crash. Silence. The glass lay in jagged pieces, reflecting only the pale morning light. Lena staggered out of the room, breathing hard. She left the mansion that day, leaving her clothes, her music notebooks, everything. She didn't even call Blake. 2 weeks later, she was back in her apartment in the city when a delivery arrived. No return address. Inside the package was a single shard of gold-framed glass, its surface still perfectly smooth. When she tilted it, her own reflection smiled back at her. A beat too late. Thanks for watching The Hollywood Hills Haunting. What do you think happened to Lena? Is the mirror really broken, or is the curse just beginning? Drop your theories in the comments below, and don't forget to like and share if you want more suspenseful ghost stories inspired by real-life celebrities and Hollywood legends. Stay tuned for our next chilling tale, and remember, sometimes the past refuses to stay behind the curtain.